Hello, everyone. I'm John Stumpf with the Florentine Opera.
And I'm Mitra from Minnesota Opera.
We are here today to chat with the charming Luke Selker, Prince in Florentine's touring production of Cinderella. Hello, Luke.
Hi.
Hi, Luke.
Hey,
Luke, I see we have a guest artist here today. Who is this?
This is my son, Emerson. He's 11 months old and he's very happy to be here.
awesome.
Hi, Emerson. Are you going to be a singer?
He probably will be. I don't know if professionally, but he'll probably sing.
Well, it's so nice to see him and nice for you to share your family with us today. Luke, so I don't know you until preparing for this audition, and it's so fun to talk with you and to learn that you're a Wisconsin native, and It must be really nice after going off for grad school to be back in Wisconsin. How is that? How has it been to return to your home state?
You know, it's an absolute pleasure. The thing that I think I missed, one of the things I missed most about Wisconsin was having seasons again. Living in Florida for my master's degree was just an eternal swamp. North Florida is very warm and very humid, and I loved my time there, but I missed the beautiful seasons we have here in Wisconsin, and it's obviously nice to be close to family and friends again, too.
Well, we're so glad to have you back in the Midwest. And John and I are wondering, Prince Luke, where our invitations are for the ball. I mean,
we're dressed.
They must have got lost in the mail or something. So he and I came dressed for it today, but we were a little disappointed not to be invited.
Well, we don't want to be too harsh on our beloved postal workers. I'm sure they're working very hard to get them to you as quickly as possible.
Okay, I'll be checking the mail later. So down to business. Do you remember, Luke, your first opera experience, and what was that like, either attending one or your own performance?
Absolutely. So the first live opera I ever attended was in my hometown of Appleton at a performing arts center, and it was a production, semi-staged, of Carmen. And at the time, I was a baritone, but I knew that I was maybe heading into tenorland. And the tenor performing in that production, his name's Alan Glassman. He's a big role model of mine in terms of someone I just admire tremendously in terms of his singing. And I was blown away. I had never experienced the art form live before, and to have the voices soaring over the orchestra and to be present in that kind of space and electric atmosphere was amazing. I was hooked.
So when did you want to become a singer, Luke?
You know, I always enjoyed singing. I think a lot of singers will tell you that from the time they're small children, they're singing. But I think I really began to appreciate and become actively interested right around the end of middle school, beginning of high school. I had several great mentors and teachers, and one of them, Ken Bozeman, he taught at Lawrence University, I should say, kind of helped me find my operatic instrument and find squillo, that nice cutting brilliance in the voice, and I loved it. He introduced me to some recordings of famous tenors, and it just took off from there. So I'd say right around the beginning of high school, I really understood that I wanted to kind of pursue this thing.
Well, this opera that we are talking about today, this Cinderella, is a pastiche, or an opera that is made up from music from other sources. And this is made from 3 different operas. How are the different composers different to sing, or are they?
Absolutely. So each composer kind of has a little bit of a musical fingerprint, so to speak. With Rossini, without getting into music theory, his music is just kind of bubbly typically, a little bit more upbeat, a little bit quicker, with lots of fun, fast text interpolated into it. So you can think of it kind of as the Bugs Bunny kind of opera music. What you probably heard in cartoons growing up is kind of Rossini's style of music. And you get into someone like Massenet, and you find these really long, beautiful vocal lines. It's very legato, which means very smooth and connected. And you'll find that you're paying attention to the long arc of a melody when you listen to Massenet's music. And with someone like Viardot, her music, I find personally that the music that I perform of hers in the opera is very text-centered. I find that her setting of text is very language-centric. So when I speak the words or sing the words, it doesn't feel as much like I'm serving a melody exclusively, but more like the text and the music and melody are working really well together. So I think she incorporates text and melody really beautifully in her music.
I have a follow-up question to that. We spoke with Katie Henry last week, who I know you know, obviously, and perform with her. And she talked about those different styles of music, but that the goal is to sing those with one voice.
Yes.
Is that how you think about that too?
Absolutely. You never want to walk away from what your natural instrument is. So even though each of those composers has maybe a fresh take on what music sounds like in their musical language, it's always being interpreted through one voice. So I 100% agree with Katie. You lean back on your solid, tried and true technique, and you sing through the voices of those composers with your instrument.
So Luke, you have to play Prince Charming. What helped you prepare for such an iconic role?
You know, it's tricky because you can think of Prince Charming in a few different ways. There's the side of him that's very sensitive and tender and caring and falls in love with Cinderella. But he's also a prince, so he has to be strong and noble. For a while, it was kind of hard to find that balance, but I actually found some inspiration in a character I suspect a lot of people know, which is Prince Philip from Sleeping Beauty. And I thought to myself, here's this noble, regal, sensitive, tender man who fights off this terrible dragon at the end of the movie, right? At the end of the Disney film. And so I found some inspiration from Prince Philip and also incorporated an acting technique, which is broadly called outside-in acting, which is where you kind of find postures that remind you of this character you're trying to play. And that informs how you deliver the text and how you feel as that character. So I found this very upright, open, inviting posture for the prince that was both strong and vulnerable at the same time. And that helped quite a bit.
That's an awesome answer. So what do you think, what would you say is something that audiences, both kids and adults, should look for or listen for in this production of Cinderella?
Absolutely. There are a few things. I would say one of the first things they should watch for, just in terms of visual interest, are the panels that we have creating the setting behind us. On one side, they're kind of bright and colorful. There's some sparkle in there, and it represents the prince's palace. And when they're turned on wheels, you can see this gray scale, black and white kind of dreary setting that's meant to be Cinderella's home. And watching the coordination of those panels turning is also just really visually interesting. Another thing I would mention is we talked earlier about the composers and kind of their own musical fingerprints. So I suspect some of our audience probably doesn't recognize immediately the composers by name when they hear the music. So based on the descriptions I just offered, maybe try to guess which selections are from which composers. Might be a fun game to try at home. And one of the last things that I would suggest to look at would be facial and body cues. So when we're singing in foreign languages, if you don't speak Italian or French, you might not understand the exact words that we're saying. So watching for our body language and our faces and the way we're acting on stage can give you clues as to maybe what we're saying. So trying to kind of unravel the mystery of the foreign languages can be fun as well without super titles or subtitles to help the audience out.
Nice. What kind of music are you listening to these days, Luke? Whether it be classical or just for fun with Emerson? Yeah.
So music that I gravitate towards tends to be upbeat and musically interesting, so complex harmony and rhythm. A band that I suspect almost everyone knows that follows into those lines is Queen, but a band that I'm specifically interested in right now that I'm enjoying and following is a band called Dirty Loops, which I believe is a Swedish band. They're jazz fusion, 3-piece band, and they're very interesting. So if you haven't heard of Dirty Loops, look them up.
And what is Emerson's favorite music?
Emerson in the womb really loved Verdi. And to this day, if I play Verdi, it's a pretty sure bet that he'll start wiggling and kind of jiving with it on the floor in the kitchen. So he's a fan of Verdi.
Good taste.
Yes, good taste. Does he like it when you practice at home?
Usually. If he's not overtired, he usually just kind of watches me and smiles. If he needs a nap, he's maybe not so inviting of it, but yeah, he enjoys it.
What do you like to do then when you're not practicing or performing? I think many of us with all this extra time during self-quarantine are enjoying some of our hobbies more. And what are some things that you have been doing?
So I am an avid researcher of whatever I find interesting at a given moment. So lately I've been researching a lot about speaker engineering, audio engineering, and also looking a lot into just general electronics. But as an umbrella term, I would say just reading is something that's very interesting to me. I've done a lot of that lately. And otherwise, just spending time with Emerson and with my wife, Alyssa. We like to go out for walks pretty regularly. Since we don't have a lot of other outlets right now with the pandemic going on, we get out to walk quite a bit. So I really enjoy doing that with them.
What is something that you have read recently that you really enjoyed?
There is a book about the life of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who is a very famous martyr in Nazi Germany, who actually had a plot to assassinate Hitler, and who kind of stood against the Nazi regime when a lot of the church in Germany was kind of bowing to it. So a very interesting life of a very interesting man, and I've been reading his biography lately. Yeah.
Well, Luke, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today and letting our audience get to know you a little bit more. And it has been a pleasure for me to get to know you as well.
Likewise, thank you so much.
And thank you all that are joining us. And if you haven't gotten a chance to see Cinderella, or you want to see it again, please visit Florentine Opera at florentineopera.org/Cinderella for schools. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.